Friday edition of lcpioneers.com Live, presented by PioStream, with you Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time on Facebook Live. You're welcome to jump in the Facebook Live comments as we keep you connected with student athletes, coaches, alumni, and members from our Lewis and Clark College community. 4 days a week, all of our shows archived and available to watch on demand at youtube.com/lcpios, also at lcpioneers.com. Hi, everyone. I'm Ryan Goff. I'm the play-by-play voice and director of athletic communications for Lewis and Clark. We are the Pioneers out of Portland, Oregon, and a member of the Northwest Conference, 9 institutions from Northwest Oregon and the state of Washington, and a chance for our teams to compete over 19 intercollegiate sports over NCAA Division III. So 430 plus institutions nationwide, a chance for our student athletes to continue to compete on a national scale. And of course, with Lewis and Clark's robust overseas study program, and during non-pandemic times, certainly a chance to experience the world and have a chance with that experiential liberal arts education. Today, we'll talk to Michael Ball, a class of 2012 graduate from Lewis and Clark baseball. Catch up with Michael and see what he's been up to since he left Palatine Hill. A look at major, what he went on to do professionally, and just some fun memories, whether it was while with the baseball team or just a member of the athletics community at Lewis and Clark. We invite you to get in touch with the program, of course. Comments on Facebook Live. We always like to say hi to those watching with us live, but also email us, sports@lclark.edu. You can do so at any time. Suggestions for future guests, welcome as well. Of course, our Instagram and Twitter also open, LC Pioneers, on both of those. We continue to keep you updated with what's going on because of COVID-19 and how that might impact our student athletes at Lewis and Clark. lcpioneers.com is the place to go. And while you're there, you can check out some of the latest information, including with a baseball audience today. It's worth mentioning the lead story on the front page is Jordan Gonzalez, a senior pitcher for Lewis and Clark baseball, was recently named a Rhodes Scholar finalist. Lewis and Clark's student athletes have made up the 3 Rhodes Scholar winners at Lewis and Clark, and yet another student athlete accomplishing high marks within the Rhodes Scholar process. You can read that right now at lcpioneers.com. And also, we keep our YouTube playlist updated with the latest information from the show. Yesterday, we had a chance to talk to Coach Ange, Northwest Conference's only full-time head strength and conditioning coach, and just a fan favorite when you look at the student athletes and the staff alike. It's really great to have a chance to catch up with Coach Ange and see what she's been up to over the course of the fall 2020 time period. So be sure to check those out, lcpioneers.com. So with that, let's bring in our guest for today, a class of 2012 graduate of Lewis and Clark baseball. We're proud to welcome in Michael Ball to the program. Michael, thanks for taking some time on Friday. I was finally able to track you down. I know you've been super busy, but with the holiday season, hopefully things slowed down slightly and a chance to get you on the show. This is one of my favorite types of interviews, to bring in people who I haven't spoken to, at length at least for 5+ years, and you, a member of class of 2012, kind of fit that criteria. Let's catch up and see how have things been going for you in the pandemic time over the course of the last year that's been challenging for many people.
Company, working remotely is definitely something that's doable. And we've kind of proven, my team and I and just the company in general, that it's something we can thrive in. So it's been nice to get some extra sleep, not have to commute so far up to Santa Monica every day. And yeah, other than that, it's been rough. Not getting out to games, not hanging out with friends. So my wife Gina and I are just trying to get out on the weekends up to the mountains or camping as much as possible, so we can kind of get out of the house and get some of our sanity back, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, hang in there certainly, and wishing everybody continued health as we navigate through the pandemic time, and with alumni and honestly most of our current student athletes too when they come on the show. I like to ask the question to get the origin story. So let's do that with you. What was it about Lewis and Clark that attracted you to compete in Portland?
Great question. Yeah, I mean, pretty much my whole life was set up to play college baseball. So through high school, club ball, little league, all of that was pretty much just to get to the college level and be able to play. So kind of growing up in Orange County and Southern California, I was kind of in a bubble. Didn't really think I was going to leave at any point. Didn't really want to leave necessarily. But then started talking to different colleges, and Justin Bachman, who was the head coach back when I was being recruited, came down to Southern California and kind of talked to my brother and I, who was the same year, same grade, same school, and also went to LC actually, Parker, and convinced us to visit the school, and we ended up going, and we ended up loving it. And it worked out well that, we kind of went there to play baseball, purely baseball, without much knowledge of Portland or the school or that at the time. But it worked out that it was kind of a trio of greatness, being able to play sports at a great school in a great location. And I don't regret it at all. And it was one of the best decisions I've ever made.
And you talked about that path, Little League, and getting prepared for the opportunity to play collegiately. When did you realize that was something you might be able to do? When did you realize you were good at baseball?
I realized it was a possibility probably in high school at some point. I think even growing up, my dad played professionally, and he played in college. So that was kind of his whole goal, was to get us to play college baseball, and that was our goal as well. So I think once we started talking to actual college coaches, that's when it got real that this was a possibility. Always had confidence that we'd play at some level, regardless of where it was. But once we started actually talking to coaches, it kind of solidified that this was happening and got us even more excited to pursue that.
Our guest is Michael Ball, class of 2012 graduate from Lewis and Clark Baseball on lcpioneers.com live. And senior year, I was just looking through the record book and the stat sheets, and 400 average your senior year. You really were a contributor to the Pioneers baseball program. What are some of your fondest memories just about being part of the team, being at the field, competing in the Northwest Conference?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, I had a fairly good senior year. Lucked out there. I would say, and I was anticipating this question, and I would say that probably the relationships and the friendships of just athletes in general, but specifically in the baseball team, are some of my fondest memories that I keep with me. If you have the stats open, you could also see we didn't have great years the 4 years that I was there. So winning probably wasn't one of the best memories, but there were times where we would sweep some of the Linfields or the Willamettes, who were fairly good back then. Those proved to be really fun memories and great weekends that we would celebrate as a team. But I would say the relationships with the different teammates are probably some of the best memories I have. And I'm fairly horrible at keeping in touch with people, even some of my best friends. But when it comes down to it, those are the people I care about and remember the most, that I would hope to maintain relationships with in the future as well.
Well, if that's the case, then I'll take some pride in actually tracking you down and getting you on the show, because I know that wasn't easy. But that said,
it's a tough one.
But that said, you look at the relationships piece, and that kind of spread out too as you worked in event management. That's such a big component of the student athlete experience that we don't talk about a ton, is the work study and the opportunities to make sure that football and women's soccer and some of the other games get off without a hitch, all while still competing and practicing with your sport. Describe, from your perspective, what it was like to be a member of the event management crew.
Oh boy. Well, those were some of the funnest times. I'll give it that. We were definitely busy. So we did set up for football games. We were there at 7 a.m., rain or shine. And most of the time it was rain because it's the Northwest, which made for some long cold days. But those were some of the funnest days that we had, I think. Working the games, we worked soccer games, we worked volleyball games. We did timing for swimming. Let's see, I can't even remember all the different sports that anything on campus, we pretty much had a hand in when it came to setting up or taking down or making sure they tried to run smoothly. Basketball games was a fun one. We did halftime shows. But yeah, the crew that we had back then, there were just some fun long days that we had, and Minty was our boss, and we had the flexibility, and he trusted us to get things done, and for the most part we did. That's actually probably the first time I met you, was being there at certain events at 7 a.m. or 4 hours before the event started to make sure all the wiring was hooked up and the scoreboard was working and the away team had everything they needed. So, that was definitely fun times there.
Yeah, and kudos to you because that did help us get PioStream off the ground and into where it is nowadays. And because of your experience with event management too, this is a fun question because with student athletes, I always like to ask, well, describe your facility, but you also had pretty thorough knowledge of all of the facilities. What was
Mhm.
it like from an athletic standpoint to have the option to compete at Lewis and Clark? And what were some of your favorite aspects of the facilities on Palatine Hill?
I mean, from my perspective, the facilities were amazing. Growing up in Southern California, where there's constant drought, the grass is never really green, which is a struggle in itself. That with the rain and the mud, it's tough to keep a baseball field, which is grass and dirt, keep it in good shape. But as you mentioned before we got on this call, that it's funny to see teams get to the game early to prep the field, then to practice, then to play the game, and then in between the doubleheader, we would also have to prep the field again. So there wasn't really a crew that would do that for us, but I think it just made us appreciate kind of the facilities a little bit more. And then even back up on the hill where the football field was, and soccer field, and tennis bubble, and the swimming pool, and all that other stuff. I think from my perspective, at least, those were some of the top notch facilities that I've seen, and I can't really think of them getting much better. So yeah, they were great, and we're pretty lucky, I think, for such a small school with such a small student athlete population to have such nice facilities. And I think that's kudos to the department, the athletic department, for making all of that happen.
You're watching lcpioneers.com live, presented by PioStream. We're on Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live, and all of our past shows available on demand. Go to lcpioneers.com and click on the fan zone. There's a link to all of our past shows. Michael Ball is our guest, class of 2012 from Lewis and Clark Baseball. And you declared as a computer science and mathematics major, have gone on to do stuff in the software world. Let's start with the academic choice and the major choice. What was it about that program that stood out to you? What were some of the aspects of academics at Lewis and Clark that stood out to you?
Yeah, so like I said before, I didn't know necessarily before I came to Lewis and Clark how good academically it actually was. Like, I knew it was a good school, but I didn't really realize how good, regardless of what major you chose. Like, the professors were great, the teaching assistants were great, the students were all really smart. So even learning from your peers was a great option. But yeah, when I went there, I didn't really have an idea as to what I wanted to study. I was just there to play baseball, honestly. So kind of just economics, business was where I went. And then I remember Michael Brody, who was, I think now might be the head of the physics department, gave a presentation on like opening week for freshmen, and he's an amazing teacher, and he gave a physics presentation. I just kind of got enamored by physics. I'm more of a practical person, not really a theoretical person, so I came to not do too well in physics, as some of the classes got a little bit more theoretical. But luckily, one of the prerequisites for physics was a computer science class. So once again, I changed my major to computer science once I took that class and realized that I kind of just fell in love with that even more. And I was actually semi good at it, which is a great plus to have when you're, studying and forced to read books and stuff like that. So that is probably one of the best decisions I've made, and I think that was more lucky than anything, that I found something that I really enjoy. And even to this day, I apply things I learned in computer science and math to my day-to-day job, and I'm lucky enough to enjoy what I do, which I know is not the case for a lot of people. So it was a weird path, but I think I ended up in a spot that put me in a pretty good position to thrive where I'm at right now.
Well, and I enjoy hearing these stories too, because I know you're not alone. And that's one thing
Yeah.
that, from a liberal arts perspective, I admire about Lewis and Clark, because I do feel like the faculty and the staff, even to the coaches, strictly focus on this idea of what success looks like to the
Mhm.
student athlete, to the student who comes there. And then it's not unusual to maybe not decide right away, or not know exactly what you want to do. And it sounds like that was the case for you too. And now you go into software engineering. Give us an update. What is your professional life like?
Professional life now is a lot more managing than programming. I've been in software engineering management for the last 3 or 4 years or so. But up until that point, I was pretty much coding all the time, which sounds nerdy, but it's fun as heck, and I loved it. There are tons of opportunities for software engineers right now, and if anybody listening didn't know that, I would say go for it, take advantage of that. It's a great industry to be in, and I think if you have a passion for it, then it makes it fun, which again, luckily I'm in the case where I have a passion for writing code and making great software and great websites, and that's what I get to do day to day now. So I'm very lucky.
And we did link to computer science and some information about that in the Facebook live chat. If you weren't familiar with the majors at Lewis and Clark, that's one aspect. I will say too, you referenced facilities management, and when we first met was my first and only year initially at Lewis and Clark, setting up PioStream and kind of building it into what it was today, with the help from some very good friends and the students yourself. But I will say that I remember you and your now wife Gina probably more than many people from that first era. So give us an update. Wedding was fairly recently. How's Gina doing, and how are you doing as a married couple?
We are doing great. Thanks for asking. Yeah, we recently got married a year and a half ago, and it's going great. We've been together since 2010, so probably right in the prime of when you were there. And I do recall you always asking about us when we were there and asking how we were doing. So I appreciate that. Even though we haven't talked since my LC days, like it's stories still come up, and we still remember talking with you and you helping us out with certain things. But married life is great. Gina is awesome. We'd love to get her on this show if we can figure out a time. She's doing her own professional thing in IT here at a company called Kaiser Permanente, which she loves. So yeah, we're loving life right now down by the beach in Orange County. Just now we're looking to buy a house. So that's the next big step in our life.
Well, we certainly wish you the best of luck, and certainly appreciate you taking some time to catch up with us today. Yeah, you're definitely my memory, and look forward to hopefully talking to you sooner than maybe 8 years down the road. Michael Ball, thanks so much for joining us on the show today.
Of course, Ryan. Thanks. Appreciate everything.
Absolutely. Michael Ball on lcpioneers.com live. Yeah, and what he said is very accurate. I mean, I've even reached out to Gina for some help on other projects and certain things, just because she was one of the student athletes that I remember most from my time. We basically set up Lewis and Clark's PioStream service, going from a single camera type shoot to more of a TV style presentation. And then I've been fortunate enough to have the support of our administration and certain people to keep that thing going now since roughly 2015, 16 in its current form with enhanced technology. I mean, we were stringing RCA Radio Shack cameras together back in 2010 when Michael was helping us do that. But Gina stayed in touch as well, and I've seen her and her former teammate Andy a couple of times over the course of my time. But one thing that was interesting about that is I do remember talking to colleagues since I wasn't on the full-time staff at Lewis and Clark, and asking coaches, administrators, what is your favorite part about this world? And it's the student athletes and the memories that are formed. You look at now our director of physical education athletics, Mark Petrock, who has been at Lewis and Clark since 1989. He probably describes that better than anybody because of the longevity and because he was an athletic trainer, the head athletic trainer for so many years, so many decades, that you have, that relationship on a daily basis with so many different student athletes. And it's the stories and the memories that you build with them. And Michael and Gina, perfect example of two that I remember specifically from just that one academic year on Palatine Hill, and then going back, a chance to catch up with people. So super fun, super thankful that they took the time to reach out, and Michael for joining us today. And I agree, we will certainly have Gina on a future show, I suspect. Didn't get the slide updated before showtime, but we're planning on head coach of women's soccer, Jim Tersey, Gina's former coach, on the show this Thursday. And then we're expecting to talk to the director of the Bates Center on Friday. So still finalizing some of our shows for next week. Quincy Bowman, a sophomore for women's golf, who was recently named a Pamplin Society of Fellows inductee, if you will. They extend membership to 7 second-year student athletes, or second-year students at Lewis and Clark. They call it the highest honor bestowed to students at Lewis and Clark. Quincy was one of 2 student athletes that I remember seeing on that list. Blake Tellinghusen from baseball, the other, that were selected from this now current sophomore class. And so this morning was exchanging texts with Quincy, and I'm anticipating having Quincy on the show coming up on Tuesday. Be sure to check out lcpioneers.com/live, which will take you to the Facebook Live page, and we will have the thumbnails and the Facebook Live event links set up sometime over the course of the weekend, usually up by Saturday, sometimes as late as Sunday or Monday morning. But be sure to bookmark lcpioneers.com/live to get the latest information. So until we talk to you again on Tuesday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time, as we do Tuesday through Friday, keeping you connected with student athletes, coaches, alumni, and members of Lewis and Clark College community. I'm Ryan Goff. Thanks for having fun with us. Big thanks to Michael Ball for joining us on the show today, and we'll see you again soon for next edition of lcpioneers.com Live, presented by PioStream. Goodbye, everybody.
I'm Ann Bentley. I'm an associate professor of chemistry, and in this research group, I supervise the 2 students working in the Rogers program this summer in our lab. The brown bag experience is a good chance for students to get experience presenting their work that they've done in the lab, especially to an audience that's not technical.
What's intriguing about the brown bag experience is it incorporates all of the Rogers program. So I'm able to hear people in the psychology department and what research they're doing, but it also gives us the opportunity to share our research with the greater science community at Lewis and Clark. And for incoming students, the summer program is really beneficial for getting opportunity in research. So I've had the opportunity for research in the past, but other students may not have the same opportunities. So it's nice to work in a professional lab setting and potentially have the opportunity to publish a paper, which looks really good moving on into doing professional research out in the field.
The students grow a lot during the summer in their ability to learn the techniques and apply the techniques and suggest their own ideas for what could come next and interpret their data. It's just a big, usually if they haven't done research before, they learn a lot in that short period of time.
I think everyone should take Intro to Chemistry because the chemistry department here is phenomenal. Everyone I've known has had a good experience with everyone in that department, so I think it's a worthwhile course to take.
What is one class that everyone should take at Lewis and Clark? I really enjoyed Education in a Complex World. You kind of get to discuss all the issues that exist within education today, and you get to kind of explore that by going to classrooms firsthand and volunteering with children, which I thought was a really wonderful experience.
One class that everybody should take at Lewis and Clark is anything with Kundai Chirindo. I think he definitely changed how I thought about rhetoric and media studies and just education in general.
For me, it was International Affairs, just Intro to International Affairs, because I think it really gives a good perspective on important issues around the world.